tonight we have a really interesting and unusual presentation. I'd like to thank Laura Zolliger for lining this up for us. We're going to be hearing from two people on different sides of the world. Marianne King is one of us, a Basque member, but some of you may not know that she's a three-time U.S. kayak polo national champion and represented the U.S. on the women's national kayak polo team at the World Games, Canoe Polo World Championships, and Pan American Kayak Polo Championships. And then she fell in love with sea kayaking, and she joined BAST early in the pandemic, and she's advanced quite rapidly and is now an ACA level 3 coastal kayak instructor. In fact, many of you have already taken classes with Marianne locally. And she's known for really hard work, performance kayaking, and discipline coaching, but most notably, she just exudes pure joy when anytime she's out on the water. It's really wonderful. Our other speaker tonight is speaking to us from Beijing. He started paddling, Ji Wu started paddling in the UK when he was in the university there on the university canoe polo team. And he's competed for over a decade in canoe polo, including for the USA national team. But for the past 2 years, he's been in Zhejiang University in Hangzhou, China, where he teaches sea kayaking, canoe polo, SUP, and dragon boat classes to students. And he also on weekends runs paddle sport classes for children aged 6 to 14, and he founded a local kayak club. Ji is an ACA certified instructor for coastal kayaking, whitewater kayaking, and SUP. And he's actually, for sea kayaking, he's an instructor trainer. So he trains instructors, and recently actually just ran a couple courses in China. Recently, Ji joined the Chinese canoe kayak slalom national team as coach, and he competed in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. So we have these two speakers who are really good at a lot of different kinds of paddling, not just sea kayaking. And what they're going to be doing tonight is talking to us about the benefits of cross-training. And their talk is titled, How to Step Up Your Paddling Game, Value of Deliberate Practice and Cross-Discipline Paddling. So take it away.
Sorry, Tom, I wasn't sure who did you want to start first? Did you want me or Mary?
It's kind of up to you too, how you want to do it.
You go first.
Yeah, I was going to ask if I could start first because it's almost lunchtime here. I need to go to the pool to get my kids out of there.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for having me here. As you have been told, it's late morning here in China. I'm here in Beijing. I'm at parents' house. So I started paddling, as Tom said, when I was about 18 or 19 years old. I was a freshman at the university in London, and my roommate mentioned canoe polo to me and said there was a tryout, see if I was interested. Before that, I've never seen a real kayak. I've never seen a canoe or any type of paddle craft in my entire life at that point. And I didn't believe there was a sport called kayak polo or canoe polo. I thought it was a joke. They were playing a prank on me. And so I went along with him, my roommate, to the pool. It's, I think, 25-meter indoor swimming pool inside the university students' union building. And I was shocked to see like 10 feet long kayaks, highly maneuverable, and people just splashing around, hitting each other and tossing the ball and passing and shooting into the nets. It was crazy. I was instantly hooked. I just said to myself, this is the sport. I want to try it, and I want to be in the game. So yeah, that's how I got started with canoe polo, or in the US we call kayak polo. And so I learned pretty much everything, all my kayaking techniques and strokes and maneuvers, doing kayak polo trainings. And on weekends, probably once every 2 months or 3 months, we would drive a university van and to other parts of the UK for tournaments. And at the time, I was just, a very, very beginning level kayak polo player. So I was in the B team and played in the B division. but I was happy, very happy. One of the biggest reasons for me to enjoy the sport over the other sports that I had tried after I got into the university is that, you know, it's I'm a person who sweats very easily. So when I play kayak polo, it doesn't make me feel like I'm sweating. You know, it just washes off. It just doesn't feel like you're sweating. So it's a great feeling. And so I finished university. I moved to the US for work and looked for local paddling clubs, specifically kayak polo clubs. So I was in New York City for a little bit. So I joined and trained with a local club in the New York City area and played some tournaments with them. Also played in the national championships for one time for the New York City club. And then I moved over to the West Coast and I was there for a little longer than 5 years. And I always had a kayak inside my car. I was driving a Prius, and so it was just enough room inside the car to put my 10 feet long kayak polo kayak inside the car. So I would just drive to work every day, having my best buddy right next to me. So after work, I would just drive down to the marina and then just do trainings for myself, also on the weekends. And I joined the local club where we had trainings using the outdoor swimming pool at UCLA. And so we went to different tournaments domestically and also went over to Canada. And then when I became a member of the US national team, we played in the Pan Americans and then played in World Championships a few times. So it was, I would say, you know, transitioning from kayak polo to later being an ACS certified sea kayaking or river kayaking instructor, it was very, very smooth and easy. I had a very good role with paddle, without the paddle, and I wasn't scared of water, cold water, or rapids. I just felt very comfortable, confident. And so now I'm here in China. I started my own club. Actually, I first moved back to Beijing, where I grew up. So I started a club here in Beijing where I was teaching after school classes to some students at international schools and using their swimming pools. So what stands out for me teaching kayaking is, you know, putting the smiles in the little children. And it just, you know, makes me, you know, value this sport, value this hobby so much. And also now, well, I actually quit my university job at the beginning of this year. So I was teaching at Georgia University for the past 4.5 years. And so I was there teaching, like Tom mentioned, kayaking, SUP, dragon boat. Actually, let me just stop here for a second. Let me share the screen because I prepared a little PowerPoint. And so you can see some pictures of my teaching and kayaking. Let me just share this PowerPoint. Okay, do you guys see it? Let me just enlarge it, make it full size. Let me know if you guys having trouble seeing it. This is first time I'm using this function.
We see it.
Okay, good, thanks. So this is, I don't think, Marianne, you're in this photo yet. I don't think you're in this picture, right? Okay, so this is, this picture was taken somewhere in Canada during the Canadian canoe polo championships. So every time when the Canadians have their championships, you know, teams, club teams and national teams from the US would go travel north and take part as well. And let me go to the next one. So this is how I looked like 20 years ago, 25 years ago. You'll know who this person is. This is from the screenshot from a movie, Captain America. So I was a very sick child. I had asthma when I was young, so I would have to carry 2 different types of inhalers in my backpack going to school every day. And sometimes I wasn't even cleared to take part in PE class. So I would get sick very, very often. I would go visit a doctor every month, a couple of times. But when I became very hooked to kayaking after I got into the university. I started doing more trainings and the strength trainings and cardio trainings and just, paddling. It really, did so much benefit to my body, to my mind. I was very, very, I would say, very shy person before I took up kayaking, and now I talk to people with ease, and then because I have to, I teach kayaking and then other paddle sports on daily basis, and so let me go over to the next slide. This is from 2012 in Poland, where my teammates and I were competing at the World Championships, the ICF Canoe Polo. And this is a picture of me, also same year, same place, 2012 in Poland. And this is the next championships. So it's so this is the one after that one. I took part in 2016. This was in Sicily, Italy. And so also from the same year, same tournament. So if you ever have a chance to try kayak polo, don't hesitate. It's such a fun sport. There are tons of videos on YouTube. You may have come across, those videos. Some of them may look very scary and dangerous to you guys. It's actually a very, very safe sport. It's super fun because there are rules governing what you can do, what you cannot do to other players' equipment. So you play by the rules. It's very safe. I've been playing since, I'm 39 years old now, so I've been playing for 20 years. I've never got injured training or doing competitions. I've never seen anyone around me got injured. It's actually safer than soccer, football, basketball, volleyball. And so it is a very safe sport, but it's super fun, exciting to watch. Okay, let's check out the next one. This one was 2016, I think, just outside Amsterdam in the Netherlands. So this is me holding a GoPro selfie stick. Next to me sitting are my student team from Zhejiang University. So these were first year or second year university students. And before they joined the student canoe polo club, they had never done any type of paddling in their lives before, just same as me. So they trained in preparation for this tournament. I had them training every morning, 6 o'clock for an hour and a half. And then after their classes, we would practice every day in the late afternoon till sundown. So that went on for 2 months before we went over to the Netherlands to this tournament. So it was a great experience for the young students. And okay, let's go over to the next one. This is the small lake we have at the university. This is just right next to the dock. So I was the one on the right side wearing life jacket number 4. And these are some of the members of our students kayak polo team. It's a beautiful place. Okay, let me go over. So cross-discipline. Like I said, I teach different types of paddle sports. I teach dragon boat a little bit as well. And I like to practice dragon boat. And when I have time, I would go with my friends, will compete in dragon boat races across China. So this picture was taken just 2 weeks ago here in Beijing, in the lake in the middle of the city, just north of the Forbidden City. So it's in the heart of the city. So you can see in this picture, there are 5 dragon boats, and it was on a Sunday afternoon. I'm actually gonna go to the dragon boat practice just in a few hours in late afternoon today. And this is, I don't know, this is when my second boy was less than a year old, also taken just right next to the dock at our university in Hangzhou. So yeah, I take them on a paddle board or in a canoe or in a kayak whenever I had free time. Sometimes even when I did trainings with my student teams, I would just bring my kids on the weekends and let them watch the students train or put them in the same boat with me while I was, coaching my student teams. And recently, I've been doing a lot of rowing practice. I think I started just at the end of March this year, because for kayak polo or canoe polo, it's a very small playing area. It's only the official game pitch is measured by 35 meters by 23 meters, so it's not a large area for you to move about, and you need a lot of very good level anaerobic fitness. So I decided to increase my aerobic fitness. So I picked up rowing this year. I would go rowing 3, 4, sometimes even 5 times a week. Each training practice would last an hour to an hour and a half. So this was me in a rowing shell just half a month ago, also here in Beijing. And about a few weeks ago, I applied for a rowing scholarship with the U.S. Rowing and to become a certified rowing coach. So I'm right now in the middle of that process. And this is me back in 2018, working as a coach for the Chinese canoe slalom team. And this picture was at the Asian Games that year. So Asian Games is the biggest sporting event in Asia, takes place every 4 years. So these standing next to me are 2 of the athletes who won gold medals for the men's K1 and then women's C1. Okay, this is what I did, what I still do on weekends, teaching small kids. The kids in this picture, they are already in middle school now. This was taken 4 or 5 years ago, I think. Also at the lake inside my university in Hangzhou. So some of these kids in the picture, they are still paddling on weekends, taking classes with my club. This is a funny picture. I had no prior knowledge that, the subway system in a different city in southern China, they just put posters of me playing kayak polo on the doors of their train. This is in the city of Ningbo, which is not too far from, it's a city between Hangzhou and Shanghai, I think. So I learned this from a friend who lives in the city. So I decided to just make a day trip to go over there and then take pictures with my posters inside the subway train. Okay, that's all I have. That's all the pictures. Most of these pictures are from 5 or 6 years ago, in the age of smartphones. So before that, I didn't have very much multimedia collection, but I've been paddling since freshman. So that's 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. And the way for me to coach or to teach others is I like to get hands-on and get in the water, get in the kayaks or other paddlecraft with my students. I don't like to just stand on the shore on the dock and giving instructions. And I like to motivate them by having races, let them have races against me. So that's why I like to train very hard, and I'm very self-disciplined. I go on the water, if not 7 days a week, but 5 or 6 days a week, maybe 6 or 7 times, morning or afternoon, sometimes on the same day. So I set a good, I would say I set a good role model for my students or athletes, and I let them see, where I was when I was, much younger at their age, when I didn't know anything, when I was physically very, very weak. And, I would go see doctors often. But now after, so many training sessions over a number of years, you can build up your fitness level and you can build up your mental strength, your health. And now I don't remember the last time I caught a cold. I haven't had a cold in, I don't know, the last 6 or 7 years. So I just, I learned a very sad news this morning after I woke up. My cousin who's in the US, and and he just had a heart attack about a week and a half ago on the 19th of July. And luckily he survived the heart attack, and he's 3 years younger than me. So I was very shocked to find that out. And then so I was on the phone with him just before this presentation and this meeting. And then I was very sad. So one of the things we talked about is, healthy lifestyle, eating, and also doing fit trainings and exercise on a regular basis. But for him to have suffered a heart attack, it was also partly due to genetics. It runs in his family as well, probably in my family as well. So I gotta watch out for that one. So doing annual physical checkup, that's my advice. So doing lots of workout in a safe and an effective way, and eating healthily, and doing your annual physical. Okay, so if anyone has questions, I'm here for
Perhaps you
another
could
15 or 20
stop.
minutes.
You could stop screen sharing now so we could see you. Yes.
Oh, I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Okay.
So about 20 years ago, 10 members of Basque went to China, and we did what might have been the first kayak descent of the Li River. And the government required us to to be escorted by a Coast Guard boat. And they fed us every day at lunch and escorted us down the river. And we had to teach our guide. We had to teach our guide how to kayak, and he loved it. And then we taught the cook on the boat that fed us lunch every day. We taught him how to kayak too. And right after that, the food got a lot better really fast. But that trip down the Li River, I think Ken Mansard is here, and he was on that trip too.
I was there too.
It was, and Joe Petalino and Mary Marcia were there. And that trip was definitely one of the highlights of my life.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. And Li River, as in the Li River in the southwest of China, Yunnan province.
Yep.
Province that borders Tibet. Wow, that's a beautiful place. I used to go there every winter to do whitewater kayaking down the Salween River.
So
you guys
I
were the
I don't know
pioneers.
if this will show up or not, but this is.
Oh my, wow, Guilin Evening News. Wow.
Mhm.
And there we are. There's the Baskers in China.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
anyway,
could you,
it was,
would you mind
we had a
having that
fabulous experience.
Would you mind having that frame, that piece of newspaper digitally scanned? I like to have a copy of it.
I think
That
I've
looks
got a
amazing.
digital. I think I have a digital copy I can send you.
Do you have a digital
Well,
copy, Joe?
That's
Yes, I do.
crazy, because I didn't know this.
Mm.
I didn't know that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was in 2002.
Mm-hmm. Wow, almost, that's 20 years ago. Wow. That's just a little after I picked up kayaking.
Mhm,
Well, around the same time. That's just around the same time
mhm.
I picked up kayaking. Wow. And did you do any other kayaking in other parts of China, other lakes or
No,
rivers?
that was the only thing that we did.
Yeah.
that-
It's
that
very
was,
different here in China to go, say, any just random body of water. Some of you, like yourself, have been here and done kayaking or paddling. Probably know about this. It's a lot of the waterways are heavily guarded or restricted. They don't let you just go on the river and then have fun. It's very difficult.
This river is very popular with sightseeing boats. There were big
Yeah.
boats
Mhm.
going up and down the river.
Mhm.
It's the place
Yeah,
where
on
all,
those
all
big-
the karst mountains, the big tall limestone mountains, and the
Yes,
people
have-
fishing with cormorants in the water.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
It was just a fantastic experience.
Hmm. Yeah, I went there. I went to the river. I went to that area 2 years ago, or 3 years ago in the summer, and then did my WAFA certification there. I had a very, very enjoyable time there. And it's very cheap. And that part of the country is everything is so cheap. Okay, does anybody else have any comments or stories to share? Laura, I see your hand up.
I'm just curious, hearing all that you've achieved and all that you maintain, like what does an average Monday for G look like? Like how do you sustain everything that you're doing in daily practice?
Okay, here's how it goes. I get up at 6 or 6:30. I usually sleep for about 6 hours, sometimes less than 6 hours. It's very strange for my body if I oversleep. When I say oversleep, that means if I sleep longer than 7 hours, I wake up with a very big headache. I'll have to take ibuprofen. So 6 or 6.5 hours, that's normal for me every night. And then wake up in the morning, just eat breakfast and get myself ready to drive my 2 kids to school. And then when I come home from school, usually on the way, I'll do some grocery shopping, get milk and then other groceries. And then I get myself ready, make a little sandwich and drive over to the training venue. So for the past few months, mostly it's been the rowing center or the rowing club. So I'll do rowing before lunch. Usually from 10, I usually do a distance between 10 or 15 kilometers on the small river, and then have my own sandwich, and then come home, do a little bit of work on my computer, and then I would just, do, maybe if I don't feel too overly tired, I work out on the rowing erg, and then drive over to school and get my wife and kids back home, because my wife also works in the same school where my kids go. And then in the evening, do a little bit more work on my computer. And then when it's not too hot, it's dark, I usually do a little bit of running in the park nearby. And then, eat a little snack before I go sleep. Some other days I don't have the luxury, of having so much free time to do all the workouts. I have to go teach classes, but that's just a day when I don't have to physically go down to the club to teach any students.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Well, thank you, G, for sharing all that with us. And I think we'd like to hear from Mary Ann.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, G. What an honor to get to present with you. And thanks so much for asking me to present, y'all. I'm gonna try sharing my screen. All right, can you see that?
We got it.
Excellent. Okay. So, here we go. So here's a little guide to what I wanted to talk about. The first is just a little bit about my own paddling journey. And then some of my learnings from doing multiple disciplines and then trying to tie that to sea kayaking, the salty salt. And then a few reflections on practice and training and progression. So first things first, what drew me to kayaking? A love of water. This is me in my favorite vessel of all time, the said cloud, which is misspelled from sea cloud. Still, best vessel of all time, said cloud. So I worked for REI for a while, and that's where I really got into sea kayaking. At that time, it was all flat water. It was amazing. Access to nature, a freedom to explore. I got out in the bay a lot. But the picture on the right at Berkeley Marine is like the extent of the conditions that I was comfortable in. So it was like anytime there was a small craft advisory, the answer was no. And then something changed. So the picture on the right is a clip from Sesame Street. And when I was 4 or 5, I saw this video. I don't know if you all have seen it, but it's a guy in a kayak and he's going down the river and he flips and he rolls. And he flips and he rolls, and he flips and he doesn't roll, and then he rolls. And I was like 4 or 5, and I was just absolutely mesmerized. like absolutely mesmerized by this clip. It was like my favorite clip on Sesame Street. And so I had this like lifelong goal to roll a kayak, which was not necessitated by my flatwater sea kayaking, but which like sort of just stood out there. And so at some point I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a roll class. And then I will not give you all the details of my rolling journey, but at some point a roll occurred and Keith from CCK was my instructor. And he said, okay, Marianne, like one occurred and now you have to come back and practice at the plunge. And I said, I don't know anybody. How am I going to do that? And he said, doesn't matter. You just have to come back. And so I came back the next week, ended up running into a friend and she knew Peter Hargreaves who taught for CCK. And she said, hey, I'm going to introduce you to Peter. But I have to warn you, like before I introduce you to Peter, like he's going to try to convince you to play kayak polo. I said, kayak polo? What is this? It's amazing. And so polo happened. And then I got way deep into it. So I joined the local club, which is the Barry Kayak Polo Club. I just totally fell in love, kind of like G. Turns out that I have a, like, you know, you always wonder if you have a random skill. I have a very good ability to throw a ball from a boat. Like, who knew, right? And so I also worked really hard. And so I ended up trying out for the national team, made the national team. And then, like Tom said, I got to compete at various international competitions, world championships in France, the World Games, which is like the Olympics for non-Olympic sports, which kayak polo is not an Olympic sport. It was just really incredible, like just an incredible highlight of my life, an incredible experience to be able to represent the United States in a kayak. So really, really wonderful. And eventually I retired from the team for a number of factors, but like the biggest is just it's intense. It's like 6 days a week of training and a lot of training camps. And I think I also like I kind of burned out a bit and I kind of lost some of the joy that kayaking had originally brought to me. And then so I took a break. Now what happened is sea kayaking. So in 2018, I took a class with California Water Collective with Laura Zeliger, Melissa Marie. And I got totally hooked again, and I got moderately obsessed with sea kayaking, or maybe not moderately, maybe just obsessed. And it was a really fun experience for me to take like this random assortment of polo skills that I had and to match that with the multitude of disciplines that exist within sea kayaking, right? Like it's surf, it's rock gardening, it's tide races, it's journeying, it's navigation. It's like it covers a lot of disciplines sort of within one bucket. And it's really been a joy. And that joy is really part of the motivation for me to start to train to become an instructor. And as Tom said, with a lot of really wonderful mentors and students and teachers, I became a L3 coastal kayak instructor last year, which honestly, I think being an instructor is sort of its own discipline. It requires its own unique set of skills and its own enormous amount of training. And then so fast forward to this year has kind of been the year of like cross-disciplinarity for me, which was motivated in a lot of ways by some goals I had set for myself. And this like didn't exist when I played polo. I was very firmly in the camp of like, I want to get good at being with one paddle and it's going to have a 60-degree feather, like nothing else. You know, it was like, I sort of like was really protective of that like muscle memory in a singular craft. And then something really changed. And so it started with surf ski and sprint. And the motivation here is I competed in the Sea Trek Regatta last year in a sea kayak. And then I was immediately passed by surf skis. And I was like, all right, I'm going to catch them. They were just gone, just absolutely gone. And I was like, what is going on? How is this thing so fast? And so I think most of you know what a surf ski is, but I got a couple of photos. There's a single and a double and then a triple. And they're like they're like the fastest sit on top of the rudder you've ever seen, right? But so I like to joke, you can like sneeze in a surf ski and go faster than you can in a sea kayak if you can stay upright. So anyway, so Paul Randall and I were like, we're gonna figure out how to get ourselves in surf skis. We joined the Berkeley Paddling and Rowing Club, an aquatic park, and it's really an incredible resource, really wonderful access to a ton of different surf skis and sprint kayaks, and and the knowledge base around that and training. So I've been training with, I think Elaine and Paul, Elaine Baden and Paul McIntyre on the call. I've been training with them and really working on speed and forward stroke efficiency and technique and downwind surfing. And that's just been a blast. And then I have some goals this year around surfing in tidal rapids and tide races. And so I've also been adding whitewater to the mix. That is I'm still like very, very new, but that's my first booth down there. And then I have a friend who does slalom, my friend Izzy. And so I've also been dabbling in kayak slalom. So that's been really fun. So what I wanted to do is sort of take you through a few of the disciplines that I'm either like familiar with or dabbling in, and just share some of the things that I've learned and then try to translate that a little bit to sea kayaking. So first is polo. And G talked about, I am going to show you a video. And this is some of our local players at Berkeley Marina. And you have an assignment, which is watch the video, but like really pay close attention to what people are doing with their paddles. Let's see if can you see the video or no? I need to do a different screen share.
We're not seeing it yet.
Okay, hold on. Let me try this.
There we go.
That's polo. Who wants to play? Let me go back. All right, so I'm not going to have people jump in, but like, what did you notice about their use of their paddles, right? Polo requires this like incredible amount of paddle dexterity. And I think it's one thing that like, even if you're not playing polo, but you can incorporate elements of polo into your sea kayaking. It's not like something we talk about a lot, but I think it's like really key and like one way to elevate like what we do. So there's a whole below water element, right? Like strokes and reactions to what other boaters are doing and ball control. And there's this above water element of like juggling and catching and blocking and playing with your angle and neutralizing the ball, flicking and dribbling, and like actually throwing a ball with your paddle as well. And so I think that's one thing that's like incredibly valuable to think about, like as sea kayakers as we're playing, is like really understanding the blade angle, even shifting your hands on your paddle shaft, varying the like extent to which you apply pressure as you are holding it, like that varies with what you're trying to do. And I think that's like one element that even if you're doing stinky fish, right, you can like bring into your paddling. That is really a key, is like essential part of polo, and I think really applicable to sea kayaking. Another is the teamwork and communication component. So especially if you're talking about trying to move like a group of individuals as a unit through space or through obstacles and communicate effectively in what seems like the midst of total and complete chaos. Like that's polo in a nutshell. And so I've been thinking a lot about like different games you can incorporate beyond just scenarios, which I think, you know, we do a lot of as sea kayakers, to really internalize. I think a lot of polo gets it like, am I in the position of maximum usefulness, even if we don't call it that, right? And anticipating what others are going to do and where they're going to be, and like having a strategy and preparation, and then like having to adapt it for the scenario that you're given, right? Because your opponents aren't like stationary, like they're also reacting and trying to exploit your weaknesses. So those are a couple of the things. There we go. A couple more, because I love polo. I think a lot of you have probably played stinky fish polo. If you haven't, you probably should. And I just wanted to note that I think a lot of you have observed this too. when you add a ball and you add competition, I think it really unlocks something, like another layer of ability or another layer of determination, or like people surprise themselves. And so I think as sea kayakers really like add a ball and like see what happens and add some competition. And I think it, in some ways, it takes out of our heads and really allows us to push ourselves. And then lastly, and this is like a theme throughout the various things I'm going to talk about, which is really like finding ways to add challenge to less challenging conditions. So in polo, you're substituting like human beings for conditions, and those human beings are like trying to find the weaknesses and exploit them. And so even if you never play like formal polo, which I do encourage you to try it, I think integrating aspects of that, like sprinting toward a goal or a ball, or adding a race, or being chased down, or like having to maneuver your boat or your edge to counter what someone else is doing, putting yourself off balance to grab something, tossing a sponge. You know, I think those are all really wonderful skills that you can build without ever having dynamic water, but they're really good prep for water. Okay, surf ski and sprint. So the surf ski paddling that I've done so far has like really elevated my forward stroke. And part of it is, I think that other than the footrest, skis do not have a lot of structure. There's no thigh braces. There's basically no backrest. You can't use your knee to stabilize. And so your body is really providing the structure and the integrity that enables your stroke and also the balance of the boat. And I think as a result, you get a lot more feedback from it. So like really good rewards for good mechanics. It feels really amazing to paddle, and it really punishes you when your stroke is less than ideal. And that has really contributed to my understanding of how to use my body to generate power, and also where I sort of spill power. So even if you never get in a surf ski or a K1, I think challenging yourself with tippier boats gets at that as well. The other thing I think has really been interesting, and Frank and I have had some great conversations about this, is like allowing yourself to use your forward stroke as a stability stroke and really like building that as a default. And I've noticed that as my forward stroke has gotten better, I default more to it than to a brace. And that has a lot of benefits for stability, keeping an active posture, having a blade in the water, maintaining speed, and sort of like this positive stability cycle of like, instead of bracing when I feel unstable, I go for the forward stroke and I gain stability that way. And that's really come from being in a much less stable boat where I feel like I'm on tip over all the time. Like direct translation, surfing, I was having a lot of trouble catching waves and really working on that. And after doing a lot more forward stroke work, I've noticed like I can take a lot less strokes and I'm on waves and I tend to turn less quickly and as I begin to catch them. It's also very, if you want to do tide races or downwind, it's like directly applicable to that. They're long, skinny, like wave catching machines, and you get to surf a lot more waves. So like pure volume, time in the boat, being able to feel wave patterns, linking waves, and also relaxing while on a wave. That's one thing that's sort of really come into my own practice this year is finding a way to like, Paul McIntyre talks about this a lot, like body scan and notice where I'm holding a tenseness in my body and like actively relaxing it. And my paddling has improved a lot from just adding that component. So I'm almost like training myself to relax, and that's come through a lot of sprint kayaking. And so again, if you don't have access to a surf ski, or you want to try a surf ski, there's ways to like mimic this, right? You can decrease your boat stability in your sea kayak by sitting on your back deck or adding water to your cockpit, or working on how you edge, like not using your knees, like using just your weighting of your butt cheeks, right? Closing your eyes, like they're all ways to kind of add that element of like decrease the boat stability to ramp up for more dynamic conditions. I started to do a lot more whitewater, and I think that my opinion is if you want to kayak in tide races, like one of the best things you can do is take a whitewater class or do whitewater. We don't always have yellow buff, but we have rivers and they have current. And in a lot of cases, like the eddy lines are cleaner. You can really drill ferrying and getting them out of eddies. I think it's really valuable for salty currents. I also think that whitewater has this really wonderful culture of like embracing trying things, and flipping and rolling and swimming and being out of your boat. And we've talked about this before on Buzz, but that culture of play and being upside down and being out of your boat, I think is something we could incorporate more as sea kayakers. And then I just love that there's so many moves in whitewater. Like, this is a stern sport where you have to be all in, and it's like the move knows whether you've committed or not. And I think there's a lot of applicability to surfing, like really setting an intention, committing, being decisive when you're on a wave or in a feature, sea booping, you know. I know a lot of you also do whitewater, so I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on. And then I've got to do a little bit of slalom this year with my friend Izzy. This is sort of the poster child for doing hard moves on easy water, which is the theme. But really applicable, I think, to rock gardening. You're like reading a feature and trying to anticipate the strokes you're going to use in advance, adapting when you need to adapt. Identifying where you are in the run or with the gait, and then sort of using and styling whatever the water gives you. And again, like if you can't or don't want to try slalom, there's a lot you can do to sort of take the slalom lessons and embrace them in sea kayaking. A lot of folks like do, you know, like not pure as in like peers, pure practice where you go and you do slalom, you know, in Berkeley Marina or that sort of thing. Use buoys to create your own challenges. And there's totally ways to scale that up, right? Do it and then do it backwards. Do it and then do it with time pressure. And then see, like, how do I make it faster and what can I incorporate? Like, how do I change what I'm doing to go faster and beat my previous time? So those are some thoughts on sort of the disciplines that I've been exposed to. And then I'm just gonna check the time real quick. All right, so then I had a few thoughts on progression and training more generally. One of the questions that y'all asked when we were sort of thinking about this talk is like, how do I approach my own training? And I think of kayaking as like a series of really wonderful puzzles, and they nest, right? They're different scales. So on some level, you might have a stroke that you're trying to figure out, and that's one puzzle. And then you got like a feature you're trying to run, and that's like a series of little puzzles. And then you've got some lofty goal, and that's a series of complex skills. But it's kind of like bouldering where you have problems, except they're puzzles, and you're solving them differently for your own body and your own brain. And then my view of training is it's really framed by my polo experience, and I integrate a huge amount of play. So the game is to layer challenge. So like when you can do something on the right side, you do it on the left. And then when you get that, you do it backwards. And then you do it with more accuracy. And then you do it faster. And then you do it off balance. And so you're always kind of trying, like you get there and you get to celebrate having got your mini goal, but then you're like seeking the next level. And that's something that's like just completely ingrained in how I think about kayaking and how I practice. So it's not like so much a endless march of challenge laden drudgery. It's really like this creative experience that celebrates the fact that our bodies are amazing and kayaks are amazing. And so you're like scaffolding up and you're also cheering off your goals. And then I think another piece of this is like you also are your own coach, right? And so taking responsibility for your own progression, like being really honest with yourself. Did I push myself? Did I play it safe? Did I leave gas in the tank? Do I consistently practice on the side that's good, right? Like, I think there's a certain amount of like, you also have to call yourself out sometimes. Not in a bad way with like negative self-talk, but just being really honest. And then I think being curious about your own progression, especially when stuff isn't working. Like I've found when it doesn't work and I have to work through something, that's when a muscle memory sticks the best because I've built the pathway. And so that is also an experience that I think builds really important diagnostic information. And especially as we're like teaching each other, we get to mine our own experience of struggle, because we all struggle with similar things. And so we get to mine our own experience of struggle to help others. And I think that's a really wonderful part of progression and training and learning and growth and also teaching. So I really encourage folks, like all the games and activities we do came from somewhere, right? Like you get to make up your own games and activities that are very specific to your own challenges, and like play with that and really design things that fit. A few other thoughts. I think that like thinking about appropriate structure is really important. So sometimes it's really important just to explore and play and have no metrics and very little structure and like reflection with absolutely no judgment. That's totally appropriate. I also think drilling things can be really, really valuable. I do this a lot when I really want to get something. So when I was working on my side slip, I would go to Berkeley Marina until the tide got too low. And I'll go out like and do the Kirby pour over. One time I did it like 30 times. So I was trying to work on timing. You can drill anything. Like you can drill a taining out the gate, right? You can drill a taining coming in the gate. Damon and Kate and I went one day and we just drilled surf launches and landings at Kirby Cove and Black Sands Beach. I love it because I think you get to remove yourself from the sense of like, I only have one chance at this, right? Which we often, that's the feeling with like surf launches and landings sometimes. And so you can like remove yourself from that and become much more of a neutral observer. And then I think it's like also doing workouts that have a ton of structure, which is what I've been doing with Berkeley Paddling Rowing Club a couple of days a week, where you're like actively working on technique and starts and distance and intervals. Those also have a place and they can be really rewarding because you improve really quickly. Video is also gold. I use a lot of video and I sort of do it in real time. So I'll take my camera and I'll put it on the dock and then I'll like do a stroke or a roll and I'll watch myself and then I'll go back and modify and I'll do it over and over and over again if I'm really trying to work on something. Also watching video of people who are much better, like folks who make it look easy. I think it's really fun to watch sea kayakers. Like there's some great surf kayaking videos out there, but also other disciplines and like try to figure out how they're doing it and really like use that as a model for your own technique. And then I'll totally put a plug in for a paddling log. You don't always have to write in it, but like logging conditions, particularly if they're good, going back and like looking at what paddle did I do in what day, especially when you have breakthroughs, like writing down your observations. I think it's really valuable to see what clicked and like why it clicked and when it clicked. And then how we're doing on time. Woo, we're almost there. All right, so a couple more things. I think like frequency matters. And if you really want to dial something in, it's important to put the time in. And I know we don't have a lot of time. So I also think that plays into being able to create challenge in the waters that you have access to and the time available to you. I also think it's really important to recognize and acknowledge your own motivation so that your kayaking is consistently bringing you joy. So like, do you like competition or not, right? Do you like being part of a team? You work better as an individual. Do you like to be accountable to other people? Is that something that helps you or not? And like really sort of structuring the things that bring you joy into your own paddling practice. I also think buddy support, psychological safety is really important. So we all sort of like perform better if we feel like we've got buddies to support us. And I've been thinking a lot more about how to structure that in, like announcing intentions in advance. Like I am challenging myself. I'm worried about X. I'd like to be supported this way. Communicating those things up front, particularly if you're going to go paddle with a bunch of folks and you want to push yourself. And I think you learn a lot by supporting others and also being supported. And so I think that's really an important part of training. So that's it. I think you can step up your paddling if you set some goals and develop a practice. There's obviously a theme of finding ways to add challenge in most challenging conditions, and then go explore their disciplines and their glorious boats, and then go steal their games and incorporate it into your own practice. And that's that. And these are a couple book recommendations if anybody's interested. That's all I got. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mary Ann. That was a really thoughtful presentation. Really wonderful. Thank you. It is 9 o'clock and people are certainly free to leave any time, but if people want to stay and ask questions, and if you have a few minutes, Mary Ann, would you entertain some questions?
I'm going to stop sharing though.
That'd be great.
This is a very bright screen. Any questions? You're also free to leave.
Hey, Marianne. I have a question for you. Um, I was wondering if you are doing a lot of off the water training. Like, do you do like weightlifting or things like that kind of strategically, or are you doing most of your training on the water?
Most of my training right now is on the water. I do some yoga, like I really try to stretch. When I played polo, I did a lot of weight training, and it was a lot of like really repetitive. So like low weight, you sort of build up the weight over time, but a lot of like high repetition, low weight type of stuff.
Mhm.
Mostly upper body with a teeny bit of leg.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. That was an amazing presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Marianne, you may have been at the last Paddle Golden Gate, which I think was in 2020, right before the pandemic.
Oh, I missed it.
Oh, and there was a speaker, one of the coaches from England. I think he was doing like a thesis on this, but what he was saying was it was really important for people to do deliberate practice. And it was really a lot of what you're talking about. And I think so many times people fall into the just, oh, I'm going for a paddle with my friends, and it's just paddling and going someplace and having lunch and coming back. But this idea of kind of incorporating play and practicing things and kind of focusing on things you want to develop in your skills, and really doing that not just when you take a class, but doing it, on your own or with your friends. I really like your suggestions of how to go about doing that. I think it's great.
Oh, thank you, Tom. Yeah, I think it's really valuable. Like if I paddle, even if I'm going with my friends, I almost always have like something or some things I'm working on. And sometimes I'll tell a friend, so I have a little bit of accountability or if I need buddy support. But oftentimes it's just like, today I'm gonna finesse my side slip, right? Or I've got some rudder stroke I'm working on, or I want to try ruddering backwards, or there's like I always have some like one or two little things that may or may not tear off my larger goals, but that I kind of like set a little intention for the day, even if that isn't like the main goal of paddling. And I think it's really fun, and also people feed off of it, right? If you're like, hey, I'm working on my forward stroke, want to sprint? I don't know. I think people enjoy it, not just the person who's practicing. So thanks, Tom.
This is Coder. I have a couple of questions to ask you about. Do you set up paddles? Do you have like skills clinics, or do you participate, or do you volunteer for the skills clinic with Bass?
I haven't, because I've been really busy, and I have been teaching with California Water Sport Collective a lot. So right now, most of my weekends are really packed. I'm not a very good volunteer. Did you have another question, Coder?
I wanted to see if you are going to be available in the near future to teach or to do skills clinic.
Oh, we can talk offline.
Okay.
Margot and I have been emailing.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much. Great presentation. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Anybody else? Should we call it? Oh,
Hey, Marianne.
hi, Paul.
Yeah, I think for me is getting a group together, a group of friends, with like interests. And, for me, it's competition. That's what spurs me on. But like you said, find the joy, but also, have people that have the same interests, and it really helps you progress.
I think that's huge. Yeah.
And then I just got to say, you amaze me. You picked up surf ski so quickly. It's amazing. It's great.
I had some good coaching. And some good competition.
Yeah, well, I know you're going to be beating me pretty quick. So
I have to stop grunting when I'm about to lose all my energy, but we'll work on that. Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, well, we're going to look forward to seeing Marianne on the water a lot more. And thank you so much. It's been a really, really interesting analysis you've given us and inspiration, I must say. So if there's no more questions, and it's after 9 o'clock, I think it's about time to call the meeting to a close. Thank you all for participating. And thank you all who presented in the meeting. We had quite a large involvement tonight. Thank you.